Welcome back. This is Angela Hood. I'm the founder and CEO of This Way Global, and I'm very excited to have on our AI Trust Guild podcast nothing less than Frank Cottle. And this man has got a history and a story that's so entrepreneurial. He's been ahead of the curve, I think, his whole life. And we are very happy to have you and your company as part of the partnership with Watson X Orchestrate. So welcome, Frank. How are you?
Oh, just fine, Angela, just fine. People that are ahead of the curve, you're always hoping there's a guardrail out there somewhere.
Yeah.
Because you either make it or you crash.
Yeah, I think, well, you're making it, obviously. So before you joined, we were just discussing these hulls of the sailboats, and I'm going to ask that you come back on, not today. I'm going to ask that you come back on another time, and I actually want you to tell the story you just told me. So interesting, but we don't have time for it today because I need for you to tell everyone what your company does, and also tell them about your podcast that you have. It's very cool.
Oh, well, our company is Alliance Virtual Offices and also allwork.space. We've been involved in the flexible workspace sector industry really since 1979. We're one of the progenitors of all things to do with flex. And during that time, we have built a variety of buildings across the United States. We've opened and managed executive suites, co-working centers, business centers, et cetera, all over the United States and in Europe. And today we are an aggregator. Think of us as being the Expedia, if you will, of flexible workspace and co-working centers. And we focus on virtual offices for the simple reason they are virtual, and that means the inventory is infinite.
Yeah, love that. So there's probably no bigger topic of conversation right now in the workplace than, are we going back to in-office work? How are we going to go back? Is there going to be hybrid? Is hybrid for everyone? There's just so many questions around this. So I don't want to divert off of the path that we're on today, where we're talking about your company, but here's why I wanted you to be sure to be in the partnership with us, because we were getting recruiters. We work with 5,114 companies. People always ask me what this number is. And we work with some of the biggest companies in the world and some of the biggest staffing and RPO agencies in the world. They come to me and they say, okay, if I have someone that has a security clearance and this job is very special, right? And we can't just have this job interview happen anywhere. We have certain requirements around it. We have a certain type of space that we have to be able to do that interview in. Or if someone says, we do group interviews, we interview 20 people at a time, and we whittle it down, and then we bring back 4, and then we whittle down, and then we hire someone. Or maybe we have 1,000 people that we need to interview, and it's in a location where we don't have an office. So all of these things were causing us to not really have an answer for the customer. I was like, I don't have an answer for you, because people would bring up, I'm like, well, they're filing bankruptcy, so that's not really who you want to partner with.
No.
And so then, I met you, and you were kind enough to take a meeting with me. Then you had no idea what I wanted to talk to you about, but it's so important what you do. And so first, tell us how many places that you have available, how many countries you're in, and then tell us more about how can you meet a customer's need for this specific use.
Well, first, no one can be all things to all people. We can try our hardest, and we do. We're currently servicing about 185,000 company clients, based across 54 countries from 1,500 facilities, about 6,000 meeting rooms in a variety of different types. So we have a pretty good footprint down. We focus an awful lot in North America because that's where most of the recruiting is done in big scale, or at least an awful lot of it. And we find it's really easy. Everything today, Uber, DoorDash, everything is on demand.
Yeah.
Everything is on demand. And so you might have a recruitment assignment, someone might, and they say, well, I have this assignment and it's in St. Louis, nice middle of the country place here in the US. And I need to, I just sent out a request and I got 100 CVs and I've whittled it down to 10 people I want to interview. And I know I need to interview them like tomorrow, or half of them are going to take jobs somewhere else.
Yeah.
You don't have time to call a hotel's catering division and set up a structure. You don't want to meet them at Starbucks. So we have a just in time. In fact, our company was founded, and this element of our company, an iteration of our company, was founded in the late 90s on the concept of just in time real estate to model the intermodal system that was used in just in time inventory for manufacturing.
Oh,
So
okay.
that's
So for
one of
so
the
they
original.
were using it for manufacturing, not for having meetings. Is that right?
No. Let me restate that.
Okay.
Just in time inventory is a manufacturer's issue, and we modeled our real estate concepts around just in time inventory for officing needs.
Fascinating.
We also recognize, because we've been in the flexible workspace sector for so many years before, that people really don't want to pay for stuff they're not using, they don't
Right.
need, and they want it now. They want it when they want it. They don't want to be committed to it long term. Um, uh, they don't want things that hit their balance sheet. All variety of cost issues around real estate. And so we came up with this concept, and we're the first people in the flexible workspace industry to fully develop the technology, the inventory, the infrastructure to deliver just-in-time services, not only for meeting rooms, but for office and workstation space as well. Because in your interviewing process, you may need a particular type of meeting room. You mentioned secure. You may need an assembly room to
Oh,
put out information so that you can get 20 people or 30 or 40 people in a room at one time, explain something, and then go through your process. Or you may need a private workstation or a private office for a week before you do the interviews. But when you're done, you're done. You want to leave and
right.
go home. So it's a very much a hoteling concept, and we allow people to book by the hour, the day, the week, or the month at their preference. And we've got the booking systems like hotels.com or Expedia or anybody else, excuse me, and the inventory with which to do so.
Yeah. When we were looking at your website, when we were going through our internal validation, will it be a good alignment with our customer base? We work with companies in 28 different industries, and we have customers that are all over the world. So we were like, are we really going to be able to partner with them? Because are they going to be able to service, the wide range of customer type? We found no gaps. We were like, this is absolutely incredible. And the other thing I will say is I thought you were uh, the price point was ideal. Like I didn't see anything where I was like, this is a ridiculous price. And I have to say, I've experienced you used hotels as an example, right? When we will plan an offsite and we're going to go get a room and we need a room for 10 people. And the price of that, because of the things that you're required to buy from catering, uh,
Yep.
ends up being absolutely outrageous, especially after COVID. So I don't know. I just found it to be such a great product. I was so pleased to find out how diverse it is as far as like the type of spaces you have.
Well, first, don't call me a cheap date. There are certain lines we can't cross here. But we've done some work with some major travel companies, and by comparison with their larger corporate clients or institutional clients, educational institutions in one case, um, we're able to come up with programs that save them any place from 60 to 75% of what they were paying in using hotels for the same exact purpose. And the savings are one thing. It's always nice to save money. But what we found is that when you walk into a hotel for an interview, um, it's there's nobody at the front desk of the hotels expecting you. You're a little lost as the interviewee. The comfort level goes up, or the anxiety level goes up a little bit. You wander around the hotel, you find the room you're supposed to be at, or there's a little sign somewhere that you find, etc. There's no one there to help you. If you're the interviewer and you want to make copies of something, you want to explain something, or you're running late and you've got to stack some people up behind you, or you need AV support. um, all of those things that we have in our home offices, but you don't have in a hotel without amazing effort.
And a
Um,
lot of
you,
expense.
you can't even book you can't book a meeting room in a hotel. There is no system for that.
You're right.
You have to go through catering, and then you have to do this, you have to do that, and you got to buy X number of lunches. It's just ridiculous. And so we thought, well, we'll just solve this, keeping it simple, so we can book things day of, month of, whatever, very simply on whatever scale. And then because we have the clerical, secretarial, and administrative support, the equipment support, the AV support right on site, we don't have to call an AV company to come in and quote putting in a
Yeah.
projector. It's silly. It's ridiculous. So all of that is on site, and it's generally all inclusive in cost.
Yeah.
So if you say it's X per hour, then it's X per hour. All the other extras just don't exist in our world.
Yeah. It's so
We
much
we
better. I
can
mean,
have lunch catered for you. It's very, very simple, and you can decide whether you want a deli lunch or a five-star restaurant lunch. It's up to you.
yeah, once we learned about you, we were like, why do we all not know about this? And then I found out how many people do know about you. Okay, so then I realized I was the one that was missing out. But okay, so now talk about your podcast and how many or what rank your podcast is and who listens to it. Share more about that.
Well, we have two major companies. One is called Alliance Virtual Offices. That's what we've been talking about, which provides all the facilities and the just-in-time utilization. The other is a company called Space, and so All Workspace. And all that's a digital media company. And as a digital media company, our mission is to spread the word about flexibility in the workplace. And we actually focus on the future of work as a topic. In fact, we own all the trademarks to the future of work as a topic in the media. And we happen to have a podcast within that digital media publication format. We're lucky enough that the topics that we deal with and some of the guests that we deal with are interesting enough to a very large audience. And so that podcast, we've been told by those that rank podcasts, whoever they are, that we're in the top 5% of all podcasts worldwide now. So I don't think it's us so much, honestly, as the topic. People right now, what is the future of work?
Yeah.
You were talking earlier about return to office. And I love the term that you said, go back to the office.
Yeah.
What business wants to go back?
Backwards.
I'm,
Yeah.
I'm explaining to my shareholders, oh, you know what we did 3 years ago? I'm going to go do that again. I'm going to explain that to my shareholders or my investors.
Right.
What a dumb idea. So
I
anybody,
think most workers would completely agree with you. All
oh,
right, so let's talk about this. What do you think is driving the companies to say we need you to come back in the office either 1 day a week, 3 days a week, all the time? What's the motivator?
well, you and I were just together down in San Antonio for a few days.
Yes.
And it was wonderful.
Yeah.
Because we've met twice personally, and we've met any number of times virtually.
That's right.
They both have their benefits. So you can't, I don't say you can't, it's more challenging to build a company where no one ever has met.
Yes.
Okay, that's more challenging. However, I think our comfort level with virtual meetings today, such as we're having right now, is increased to the degree where we could physically meet a lot less and be just as happy. Um, uh, there, I don't think there's a right or a wrong so much as I'll use a good example. I've been, my wife and I have been together since November of 1969.
Okay.
Okay, what does this have to do with return to the office? The issues around return to the office have to do with compromise. And I'm obviously, having been married for so long, a great compromiser and a good negotiator. So you have to be able to listen and learn and look forward in everything you're doing. You can't just say, this is what we did it yesterday. What are the 7 most dangerous words in business? Because that's the way we've always done it. We've heard that for a million years. And so we can't look backwards. We can't look over our shoulder. We have to look forward. We have to look generationally also. Today, I'm a boomer, and we're talking about what does Gen Z want?
Right.
And everything in between. And every layer, generational layer, has a different set of values, a different set of needs. And we, in the workplace, we have to get them all to work together. So looking backwards, doesn't work. That's a non-starter overall. And whether it should be 1 day a week in the office or 4 days a week in the office is really up to the people that are producing the work product themselves, how they feel they can be the most productive. And it has been demonstrated in any number of studies now since the pandemic and during the pandemic that people that work remotely are no less productive than people that work all together. And people that work remotely, to some degree, and you mentioned hybrid, so we should probably define what's the difference between remote work, hybrid work, digital nomadism, all these different terms.
Right.
We'll ignore that today for the moment. But people that work outside of the core corporate environment, 1 to 4 days a week, or even 1 to 29 days a month, are no less productive, but their personal life is better. So why do we work? Why do we work? For personal satisfaction, for money, ego, any number of reasons.
All of the above.
All of the above.
Yeah.
Any number of reasons. The more of those reasons that an employer can fulfill, the better the talent they're going to attract. And the better the talent they attract, the better the business outcome that they will have with their company. So this doesn't seem to require a lot of IQ. I mean, I don't have to be real smart to figure this out. Where you see a lot of back to the office stuff, what we've seen, and we worked with a company back in the late 80s, a major global Fortune 50 company. And what they had done is they had over expanded their office space on a massive basis because someone at one of the big 3 accounting firms had convinced them that because they were so big and powerful, they could get below market leases by anchoring certain major new high rises that were going up. And the delta in the lease versus the low market lease they could get versus the market value was an asset that they could put on their balance sheet. That held up for a few years. Okay. And then, no, that's not going to happen. Got to erase that. So they immediately had to dump tremendous amounts of office space. They went into what they call an office amnesty program, where each of their divisions was allowed to give space back, and then they got rid of it.
Right.
So there's a whole bunch of companies, particularly when there's a boom, tech boom, financial services booms are 2 good examples, that overcommit to real estate long term. New York City's famous for that, especially financial organizations. So we won't have to name any names. You can figure out, just go any one of the big three. That works. They've overcommitted to real estate. So they can't stand to have it empty. They can't stand to have that wasting asset. So they want everybody to go back to the office.
Right.
That's one reason. The other reason they say is, oh, it's important to our business culture that everybody be able to get together. And my answer to that is, dude, if that's the case, you didn't have a culture to begin with. Really, it just isn't so. Sometimes it's nice, but it's not necessary all the time. The average commuter in New York City was spending between $30 and $50 a day.
Mm,
Combination of commuting costs, actual costs, trains, buses,
right.
et cetera, lunches, et cetera. It's all been calculated in a variety of studies. Who pays that cost? Well, the employee. What does the employee do? I need more money from the employer. Okay, the employer pays that cost so he can keep the talent. What does the employer do? Pass that along to the consumer. And then we all bitch about inflation.
Yeah.
It's like there's this chain of events or dominoes, depending on which way you're flowing it, that people only look at one aspect of it and not the entire structure. And it's today in the world, it's just necessary to look at the whole picture. And the whole picture says flexibility. And if you were to be a company 20 years ago, and you talk to an investment banker, they'd say, we got to have two things. Have a product that customers want and access to capital so we can scale. You give me those two things and I'm going to be successful. Okay. Today, we got to have three things. We got to have to add flexibility. Because if you don't have flexibility, you cannot respond. And we've all heard about the agile this and that. You have to have flexibility built into your system's core, or you will not be competitive in the future. So remote work, hybrid work, back to the office is all based around some flexibility model that's necessary to sustain a viable company today. And that's really what you're trying to do in the talent recruitment, is get the right people in the right places so that they can do that, and to guide corporate employers on that flexibility program.
So I think the proof in what you're saying is that when we post a job out for one of our customers, and it goes out to all of our network, it does not matter anything else about it. It doesn't matter what the location is, the salary, all of those things, right? Those things find a way to modulate. If the job is remote or almost fully remote, so 90% remote, maybe it requires some travel, that job will get 3 to 5 times the number of applicants, and the quality of the applicants is often 30 or 40% higher quality than the other ones.
Well,
because all the talent that they know what they're worth, they know that they're good, they want to have the flexibility. And I think that's the point. It's like, I may want to come in. I may like to come in. I may once a week want to meet with all my team or whatever, but I want to have the flexibility of what day is that? Is it every week? It is flex. That's the point.
Yeah, it is. And I think when you mentioned that higher caliber, what, and I don't want this to sound mean-spirited at all, but you've found a larger pool of decision makers. They may not be any more intellectually intelligent. They may not be any more of a hard worker, but they're much more decisive. And in our company, we give a little lecture when somebody comes on board. The one thing we will fire you for is not making your own decisions.
Mm.
If you can have a company full of decision makers, you can move at 2 or 3 times the speed of a company that does things on a hierarchical system. So if your talent comes from a pool of people that have made certain decisions about quality of life, type of work, et cetera, and they're willing to stick to it. It's one thing to make a decision, it's another thing to stick to it. You've got a totally different pool of talent. And I
Yeah, I
think
think
that's
that's a great
for
point.
consideration.
Very great point. Yeah. Um, I know that when we talk to people, we're with huge companies sometimes and they're doing a recruitment event and our technology is supporting that recruiting event, right? So sometimes my team has to go in advance. And this is the topic that is always brought up. It's the only one you can think of that will be consistent is, are these jobs remote, hybrid? How do you define them? And here's what the companies are doing. They're like, well, I don't want to say that they're in office, but we really want them to come in the office. And so they're starting a relationship with a candidate and a possible employee that's not transparent, right? They're not being truthful about what the job means. If the job really means you have to come to the office every day, people have to say that. And I do think that there are some people that want to do that. I think there's some people that like going to the office. Maybe there's some reason that they don't want to be at their house. It could be lots of different reasons, right?
Oh
Maybe their
yeah,
house
no,
is
the whole
they want to go to the office.
that's part of defining remote work. Does it
Right.
mean I work from my home, sit at the kitchen table when the kids are coming home from
Yeah.
school because I live in a small apartment and don't have a suitable work?
Right.
Or do I work from a third workplace, a business or a co-working center? If I work from my home, is that landlord or am I the landlord of my own office and therefore the company should be paying me a stipend for the utilities I'm using for this? All of these things go. What if my kid comes home and sticks his finger in the back of my computer and gets electrocuted? Who's liable?
Yeah.
All these things come up. So, there's it's not just a matter of place, it's a matter of a variety of things, social things, quality of life things, liability issues that have to be taken into consider in any good plan. And I don't think that companies today are, or very few companies today at least, well, are really making their decisions holistically.
Very good point.
Still
Yeah.
still making them reactively. And to your person that says, well, we want to tell them they can do this, we really want them in the office. It's because you got 200,000 feet of empty space. That's why you want them in the office so
Right.
that you can justify it. Even when the offices were 100% occupied, everybody worked in the office, so to speak. The actual utilization of space in the office was only at about 40%. It was already
40%.
Yeah, it was already a wasting asset.
Wow.
Okay. Well, let's put it like this: you're at a desk. You're going to the office every day. How many times do you meet someone outside of the office?
Yeah, a lot.
Okay. How many times do you travel?
Right.
How many times do you go to events? How many times do you go to conventions, etc.? Who's using your desk during that time? Okay. Your son's in the Navy. Hot bunks. Why do hot bunks work? Well, because you've got 3 shifts, sometimes 4, 3 shifts, and we can use the same bunk 3 times. Deloitte did hot desking in the 90s. They were a pioneer at that. Uh,
Hmm.
Overall, these systems have been around for decades. And even before the pandemic, a lot of big companies were finding out that battle for talent. They couldn't get the talent they wanted without some sort of flex provision
Mhm.
in the model. And the pandemic just all the people that had 1 foot over the threshold, somebody just kicked them in the rear, and they stumbled forward into this new world, and then the door slammed behind them.
Yeah.
It is a new world. It's different. And if you think Gen Z,
Is going back.
go to the office and go there 5 days a week because you said so, you might as well shut your doors right now.
So I met a young woman who is a MBA student that graduated in May of 2020. Okay, so she was that class that they just were by, we're just going to send you your diploma. We're
Yeah,
not
good
doing
luck.
anything. Right, yeah.
The good luck class.
And she had been in class this whole time, right? She'd got her university undergrad. She's now got her MBA, and I think she has her MBA from Columbia. She is working in New York, and she has never, because of her timing, she's never worked in an office.
Mhm.
So they called her to come back in, and she was like, okay, I'll come back in, but I don't know where the office is, right? Because she's never gone and she's never been told this is where you work, quote. So she goes into the office. She did not know about getting the lanyard with all your credentials. She goes to her desk. Everything was foreign to her. And she said that there were a bunch of people that were hired. It's in the finance sector, and there's a bunch of people that were hired all at the same time, and they all went through a virtual onboarding class together for a month, and then they were, quote, coworkers. She's like, we don't know what to do. We feel like fish out of water because they've never been there, and there's no one that's more senior than them that's there, because those people have enough seniority to basically say, I'm not coming in. And the only other people that are there are literally the CEOs. So this was a really interesting point. These people are getting more proximity to the very senior people at this bank. And there's this huge swath of people that never come in at all, and they're never seen. And she's like, we're doing better professionally,
Yep.
like they're getting promotions and they're accelerating. But she said she goes, it's proximity bias. She goes, I know that, but she said, I'm benefiting from it. But it's really weird because I don't really know what I'm doing. This is a financial institution. I'm not going to say who it is, but I promise you, we do not want people just being promoted when they're not ready, because this is a very important company. This would be quite devastating if we had people that don't know what they're doing. So I think there's some other things that we're just now finding out about, that we're making a rash decision, and to your point, going backwards to where we were in 2020, and we're fully in 2024 now, and we're accelerating. All right, so we are about to wrap up, but I do want to say that I always love talking to you, because you always have a view that I think that people really need to pay attention to. You have a product that meets a very real need, and it's so well put together. Like the way you interact with your platform, everything is great. The one question I have is there anything else that you want to leave as a parting piece of wisdom to the people listening before we go?
Oh, wisdom. If everybody with if everybody with a beard was wise, then all goats would be prophets.
Oh my gosh. Oh, you always leave it with
I don't know if that's the kind of wisdom you wanted, but that's what you got.
I love it.
I think as it relates to remote work, just and the changes in the workplace, don't focus on remote work or hybrid office or this or that. Just focus on the entire future of work holistically. And it's going to change, and the change is going to accelerate. You wouldn't have thought 30 years ago about hiring a position across the border, a single position, and now you wouldn't think twice about it.
Right.
Okay, so everything is going to change. Embrace it knowledgeably, with become the best student of this change. Don't become the person that's afraid of the change, but become the best student of it.
That's awesome. Well, Frank Cottle,
The bearded goat.
Alliance Virtual Office, thank you so much for joining. And I am going to have you come back and talk about sailing.